Hello, everybody. Good to be here live with you today. I'm joined by a special guest, but I'd love to see. Let me get my chat box on here for anybody who happens to be tuning in now and catching us live. Be sure to let me know where you're watching from, even if you're catching the recording. Both our guest today and I are both pretty well connected all over the world, so I'd love to see how far this video reaches. So just comment with where you're watching from today so that we can say hello to our friends near and far. So today I am joined by a special guest, a friend of mine who I've known for a very long time, probably pretty close to 10 years now, Michael Dill, Coach Michael Dill, who is also the author of the best-selling book, Knock It Out of the Park, Leadership. And that's kind of what prompted this discussion today. Was I've been reading through Michael's book and a couple of things stuck out to me. And I thought, I want to bring Michael on to share a few tidbits and takeaways as it relates to leadership and getting more out of your team. So welcome, Michael. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Carrie. Hello, everybody.
Awesome. So now, as I was reading through the book, it breaks down the ABCs of leadership. So there's a bunch of real quick, practical leadership tips in there. So I highly suggest that you go pick up the book. But Michael, one of the things that stuck out to me was the chapter that you called the big O's. One of the O's was ownership. So
Yeah.
talk to me a little bit about ownership. What does ownership look like in a business?
Well, interesting. The book's all about leadership, Carrie. And I believe ownership is the number one quality of being a great leader. Owning it. Everything that happens in your business, both good and bad, if something happens with your team and you say, what's wrong with that team member versus, was I not a great leader? Did I not communicate well? Did I not get exactly what we expected out of them? That's taking ownership. And only when you look in the mirror can you change and get better. If you look at others, you can't work on yourself.
Absolutely. Life is a reflection, isn't it?
Amen.
Results that we get or results that we don't get. We're asking ourselves, what did I do or not do? Right? What expectations did I set or not set that allowed this result? So what are some of the
Absolutely.
common mistakes that you see in leaders when it comes to taking ownership themselves or trying to get their team to take more ownership over their roles in the business?
Well, I think it starts with the leader. We here at Action Coach are really big on the be, do, have. Be times do equals have. Have is what you want. Do is the actions, and be is how do I need to step up. And I think a lot of leaders and business owners get caught up in the fact that what do I have to do to get the right people? What do I have to do to motivate my team? And it's the wrong question. The right question is, who do I need to be as a leader to create the culture and the environment to attract the right people that would be proud to represent my brand? Now that brings ownership to the leader. And then how we show up is how they show up. If you create that leadership and you create that thought process and you create that culture, the people that fit into the culture should automatically take ownership based on your lead. I think it all
Yeah.
starts there.
That's a great point. I've had my clients do an exercise a number of times where the first question is, describe your ideal team member. And they come up with an amazing list of how much ownership they take, how much they care about the business, their level of integrity, their competence, their attitude, all these different things. And then I say, what kind of leader does that person want to follow? Right? And how does that compare to, how you're showing up as a leader right now? Are you the kind of person that an A player wants to work for on their team? So,
Yeah,
hey, I see some people joining us here. Sorry, go ahead.
The first question for the leader is easy to answer. Then you ask them the second question, then all of a sudden it gets a little difficult.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's where the gee, that kind of comes in. Quick check, and I see a couple people joining us on LinkedIn or on Facebook or wherever you're watching from. So welcome. If you're just now tuning in, do me a favor and leave a comment and let me know where you're joining us from. So hello to Joseph, hello to Erica. Thanks for being with us today. And also, if you have any questions for Coach Michael, we're on the topic of leadership, and more specifically, we're on the topic of ownership, of taking ownership, taking responsibility as a leader, so that you set your team up to lead, to follow your example and do the same. So, Michael, back to the conversation. Can you give me an example of a leader who does this particularly well? Maybe even somebody that's made the transition where they used to blame their team, right? Or make excuses, and they have grown to really take ownership, and that's being reflected in the team.
Yeah, Carrie, there's a great story in the book. I had a client a long time ago that when I sat down with him, I started asking questions. Of course, his frustration was my team has no accountability, they have no ownership, and so on and so forth. And we've all heard that before. And I started asking him questions like, "Do you have a vision, mission, and culture?" No. Do you do quarterly meetings? No. Do you have a position agreements for all your team? No. Do you do reviews for your
Mm.
team? No. I said, "Do you even talk to them?" He goes, "No." Okay, interesting. So it started, and he lost. He had it was a 10-person law firm, and they lost 13 people over a 2-year period. So and then
Wow.
I said, "Well, your first exercise when he became a client was I want you to go home and write down all 13 people and tell me why they all left." And he came back the following week and he said, something was wrong with Carrie and something was wrong with Michael and something was wrong with Jose and so on and so forth. I said, "Okay, I appreciate that." All 13 had a problem. I said, "We're going to do this exercise again a little bit differently. This time I'd like you to
Let's look
go
at the
back
common denominator here.
uh, and not why they left, but what you could have done better as a leader to retain them and what you will do going forward to make sure this never happens again." So when he came back to the coaching call the following week, I said, "So you do your homework?" He's like, "That was tough." I'm like, "I'm sure it was." I said, "Why was it so tough?" He goes, "Because I had to own it. I couldn't blame anything. I had to look at myself." And needless to say, over a course of a year, we got everything in place: vision, mission, culture, position agreements, review process, quarterly, weekly meetings, quarterly meetings. And his retention right now is 100% and has been since we
Wow.
worked together. So there's a guy
Awesome.
that really figured it out. And what was most interesting when he did his first review, he called me up. He said, "Coach, I got to share something with this." "What's up?" He goes, "They wanted this." I said, "Wanted what?" He goes, "They wanted it." I said, "What they want?" And he said, "Well, remember I told you they didn't have any accountability?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "They had accountability all along. The reason I felt they didn't have it is I never created the culture and the structure for the accountability. They wanted
Mm,
this. And now they love them and they follow them and the business is doing well." So I think that was a huge lesson for him and a lesson for
nice.
me also.
Yep. Awesome. That's great. We got a question here that came from Joseph. What is the number one responsibility of the leader?
Inspiration, inspiration and vision. The leader's job is to have the vision of where they're going. So when everybody gets on the bus and says, when he says, "Follow me," they know exactly where they're going and how to get there.
Yeah, I agree. Several years ago, I heard Brad Sugars make a comment that said, you can't motivate people. What you can do is find people who are motivated by what you're building, which is really hard to do if that's not clear. If the vision's not clear to yourself and you're not able to articulate it to your team in a way that also inspires them and compels them, which leads to ownership. So, what
Absolutely.
advice do you have for a leader that's trying to do this the right way? They're setting clear expectations or providing the training and resources, but maybe having a hard time still getting their team to take the handoff to mirror that. For example, this might look like the team is there and they're good employees, but maybe they're still asking a lot of questions or they're looking for permission. They're hesitating to take risks or make decisions without having permission first. They don't want to mess up, right? So they're hesitating to really step into full ownership. Have you ever seen that take place, and what do you advise about that?
Yes, I think the first thing is as a leader, we need to ask better questions. I find a lot of business owners, leaders, as they're attempting to coach their team, they're telling them and telling them and telling them. And if we're doing all the talking and someone else is supposedly doing all the listening, they're not really
Mhm.
taking it in because their brain's not working. However, if we know where we want them to go and we ask a question, say, "Carrie, I'm curious, what's your thoughts on that? What do you believe what's your best solution to get to where we are, to where we're going? How can I help you? How can you improve?" When you start asking questions, their brain has to go into thinking mode. And that's where they start digging deep, just like you did as a leader when you ask yourself, "How can I get better?" And then they start doing the work internally, just like you did the work internally to get better and find the answer themselves. And once they find the answer, boom, then they embrace it and then they're ready to rock and roll and have some fun.
Nice. Any closing thought of what you would encourage any leader who's watching this right now? And by the way, if you just tuned in the last couple of minutes, do me a favor and let me know where you're watching from. Say hello to Coach Michael, and make sure that you go back after the fact and catch the rest of this recording. But back to you, Michael. Closing thought: if you could encourage every leader watching this to do one thing to increase the ownership in their company, what action would you have them take first?
Well, I think the power of our day is created by the power of our questions, which delivers the answers, delivers the actions, which delivers the results. And when you wake up in the morning, just write down, how can I be a better leader to empower my team to go the direction we want to go? And
Say that
start with a
question again.
great
That was good.
question.
I think people need to let that sink in. Can you repeat that question?
Certainly. And when you wake up in the morning, instead of just brushing your teeth and going to work, ask yourself, how can I be a better leader today to lead my team to go to where we're going and get them to understand why we're going there? You
That's
ask
great.
that question, you will be able to develop the answers. And trust me, by the time you get to the office, you'll know exactly what to do.
That's a great question to set intention and really gives clarity and focus. There's a lot of things we could be busy with. None of my clients, no leader I know is at a lack of things to do, but that kind of cuts through the fog and the overwhelm and really gives an intentionality and a purpose behind their actions for the day. So, really great
Absolutely.
tip. So,
Thank you.
hey, Brianne, thanks for joining us today from Texas. Awesome. We've got people from all over the country and probably eventually from around the world. So, whether you're catching this live or recording, we'd love to hear your number one takeaway. If you have any follow up questions, feel free to comment on the video or to reach out to Coach Michael directly. I'll make sure his details are in the caption so you know where to find him. But thanks, Michael, so much for being here with us today. And everybody, remember to pick up a copy of his book, Knock It Out of the Park Leadership. You can find it on Amazon, download it on your Kindle. And we'll see y'all soon. Have a great day,
And
everyone.
thank you very much for having me, Gary.
Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching.